If someone asked how love changed my life, the answer would be, it didn't change everything. It just made everything more meaningful. I still go to work every morning, still have meetings, still deal with endless emails, still wrestle with bills, taxes, and all the responsibilities of being an adult. Maddox still films, still flies everywhere, still appears in magazines and on television. But now, no matter how long the day, we both know there's someone waiting for us to come home. And that feeling is worth more than anything else. 2 years after we started dating, Maddox bought a house outside Boston. Not too far from the city, not too close to the noise. A 2-story house with a wide garden out back. The day he took me to see it, I laughed. You hate mowing the lawn. I'll hire someone. You hate gardening. I'll hire someone. You hate repairs. I'll hire someone. So basically you just want to own a house. Exactly. I shook my head. This man was exactly the same as the day I first met him. Only now I was allowed to hold his hand when I said that. The first evening in the new house, we sat on the living room floor, surrounded by unopened boxes. No chairs. No table. Nothing but pizza and soda. This is a very glamorous start, I remarked. Maddox rested his head on my shoulder. I like it. Really? Yeah. Why? He thought for a few seconds, then said, because this is home. A simple answer, but I understood. Completely. Because for years, Maddox had lived in hotels more than in any house. Spent more time on planes than on the ground. Always moving. Always busy. Always having to leave. But now, for the first time, he had a place that was truly his. A place to come back to. One spring morning, I woke up to find Maddox wasn't in the room. That was unusual. He normally slept in later than me. I went downstairs and found him in the kitchen. On the counter was a pile of flour, a cracked egg, and something that looked more like a crime scene than breakfast. Should I call the fire department? I asked. Maddox turned around. Hilarious. What are you making? Pancakes. They look like they're in pain. Get out. I laughed out loud. 10 minutes later, we ate the ugliest pancakes in human history, and they still tasted good. Maybe because we ate them together. Things weren't always easy. There were times Maddox faced enormous pressure from the media. Times I was overwhelmed with work. Times we argued. Times we were both too stubborn to back down. But the difference was we always came back. Always talked it through. Always chose each other. Because after everything we'd been through, neither of us wanted to lose what we'd found. The year I turned 33, Maddox was 35. He decided to return to the screen after a long break. Not because of pressure, not because of money, but because he had finally found joy in his work again. I remember the first day he stepped onto a new set. He held my hand before leaving. Nervous? I asked. A little. You've done this hundreds of times. But this time is different. How? He smiled. Because for the first time, I don't feel alone. I squeezed his hand gently. No need to say anything more. The film was a bigger success than anyone expected. Maddox received several major award nominations. Once again, he became the center of attention. But this time, he handled everything so much better. Because his life no longer revolved around fame. It revolved around things more real, more lasting. Family, friends, home, and love. One evening at the end of the year, snow fell again, just like the night we first met. We sat out on the porch, wrapped in blankets, drinking hot chocolate, watching snowflakes drift down into the front garden. Do you ever think about that first day? Maddox asked. Of course. What would have happened if you hadn't gotten in the car that night? I smiled. I'd probably be working somewhere else. And you'd still be a movie star. That sounds sad. Yeah. He was quiet for a moment, then leaned his head on my shoulder. I like this version better. I turned to look at him, the man who had appeared on screens all over the world, who had made millions of people admire him, who had walked into my life in the most unexpected way, and then stayed. Me too, I said, because it was true. This version of life. The The version with Maddox. Always the version I love most. I used to think happiness was a moment, a special day, a memorable event, something grand. But the older I get, the more I realize happiness tends to appear in very ordinary shapes. The sound of someone calling your name from the kitchen each morning. A light still on when you come home late. The feeling of having someone always in your corner. For me, happiness has a name, Maddox Hayes. 3 years later, our life had settled so comfortably that I sometimes forgot I was in love with someone famous. Until we went to the grocery store together. "Why is everyone staring at you?" I asked. Maddox looked at me like I just asked why the sky was blue. "I've been in movies. I suppose you're kind of famous." "Kind of. Moderately." He burst out laughing. The woman standing nearby recognized him. Asked for a photo. Maddox happily agreed. When she left, I pushed the cart and kept walking. "You handled that really well," I said. He shrugged. "I'm used to it." Then he looked at me. "What I've never gotten used to is the way you still treat me exactly like you did on day one. Should I do it differently?"
No.
The smile on his lips softened. "Never." Time moved faster than I expected. At 35, I was promoted to regional director. More work, more pressure, but also more rewarding. The evening I got the news, I came home close to 10 o'clock. The living room light was still on. Maddox was waiting. "You're not asleep?" I asked. "Not yet." "Why?" He held up a bottle of apple cider. "To celebrate." I thought it was supposed to be champagne. "I'm getting old." "You're 37. Exactly." I laughed until I had to sit down. Then we clinked our apple cider glasses like two eccentric old men. And honestly, that was one of my favorite celebrations ever. One summer day, I got a call from my mother. After a few minutes of chatting, she asked, "Are you happy?" I looked out the window. In the yard, Maddox was trying to teach the neighbor's dog to catch a frisbee. The dog refused to cooperate. Maddox kept trying. Both of them looked equally ridiculous. I laughed. "I'm happy," I answered, without hesitation, without a second thought, because it was the easiest answer in the world. A few months later, something unexpected happened. Maddox was offered a role in an international film project spanning nearly a year, shooting in multiple countries. A huge opportunity, but it meant being away from home for a very long time. That evening, we sat in the living room looking over the contract. "Do you want to take it?" I asked. Maddox was quiet. "I don't know." "Really?" "Yeah." "I thought you'd say yes immediately." He set the file down, then looked at me. "In the past, I would have. And now I have to think about us." My heart still skipped every time he said that word. Not me, not him, but us. In the end, he took the project. And the next year became the greatest challenge since we'd been together. Maddox moved constantly. London, Paris, Sydney, Tokyo,
Rome.
I stayed in Boston, kept working, kept living my daily life. Some weeks we only video called a few times. Some days the time difference made staying in touch nearly impossible. But strangely, the distance didn't push us apart. If anything, it made us treasure the small moments more. A good night text, a 5-minute call, a photo of breakfast. Things that once seemed ordinary became precious. One night, around 3 in the morning, my phone woke me. "I hate you," I mumbled when I picked up. Familiar laughter came through the line. "I'm in Italy. Congratulations. I just saw the most beautiful thing in the world."
I'm sleeping.
"It's not you. I'm hanging up." "Wait." I heard the wind. Then Maddox's voice softened. "I miss you." Every bit of irritation I felt instantly vanished. I leaned my head back on the pillow, closed my eyes. "I miss you too." A silence followed. Not awkward, just peaceful. As if sometimes, simply hearing each other's voice was enough. A year later, the project ended. Maddox came home. I went to the airport to pick him up. Amid the crowd of people coming and going, I spotted him almost immediately. Still the same familiar silhouette. Still that same smile. Still the person who made my heart race just like the very first day. When Maddox reached me, he dropped his suitcase and held me tight. Finally, he said. Finally, I echoed. And in that moment, I knew one thing. No matter how life changes, no matter how far the future takes us, some people will always find their way back to each other. And Maddox was exactly that person for me. After Maddox returned, our life seemed to enter its most peaceful chapter. No more years of fumbling with feelings that had no name. No more long nights wondering what the other person was thinking. No more silence stretching between us. We had traveled a very long road to get here. And for the first time in years, neither of us was in a hurry. One Sunday morning, I woke up later than usual. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. The autumn air was cool. I reached across to the other side of the bed. Empty. Not unusual. But when I went downstairs, something felt different. The house was strangely quiet. Maddox. No answer. I walked through the living room, through the kitchen, then stepped out into the back garden. And stopped. Maddox was there, wearing a gray sweater, holding a shovel. Beside him was a freshly dug hole in the ground. I blinked. A body? I asked. He looked up. Is that really your first thought every time? It's a reasonable question.
No.
Good. He laughed, then reached beside him and picked up a small sapling. I'm planting a tree. I stared at him like I was witnessing a rare natural phenomenon. You? Yeah. The man who killed 3 cacti? That was the past. I'm genuinely moved. Maddox tossed a small clump of dirt at me. I laughed. We spent the whole morning planting that tree. A small maple. Maddox said he liked what it represented. Why? I asked. He brushed the dirt from his hands. Because it'll grow with time. I looked at the tree, then at him. You're becoming quite profound in your old age. I hate when you're right. But the smile never left his lips. The following years passed with frightening speed. I turned 38, then 39. Maddox was 2 years ahead of me. Silver threads had begun to appear at his temples. I loved that, even though every time I mentioned it, he objected. It makes me look old, he'd say. I think it's beautiful. You're biased. Yep. I win.
No.
We still argued about silly things like that. And we probably would for a long time to come. One winter evening, snow was falling again. I was sitting in the living room reading through documents when Maddox appeared, holding a small box. I hate that look on your face, I said. Why? What are you about to do? Nothing. I don't believe you. Maddox sat down beside me. Unusually, he wasn't joking, wasn't smiling, just looking at me, very seriously. My heart began to beat faster. Now I'm a little worried, I said. Rowan. His voice was gentle. I set my documents aside. Maddox took a slow, deep breath. Then another. The man who had spoken in front of millions, who had accepted awards on international stages, was so nervous he didn't know what to do with his hands. That made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. What's wrong? I asked. He smiled faintly. I'm trying to say something. Then say it. It's harder than I thought. I looked at him and waited, and then Maddox opened the small box in his hand. Inside were 2 simple rings, not elaborate, not extravagant, but beautiful, in their own quiet way. I stopped breathing. I spent a long time thinking about how to do this, Maddox said. I thought about fancy restaurants, trips to special places, somewhere truly memorable. His voice trembled slightly. But in the end I realized, the most special place has always been wherever you are. I felt my eyes begin to sting. That almost never happened. Almost never. Rowan, he continued, the day I met you, I thought I was just hiring an assistant. I laughed through the tears forming in my eyes. Best hiring decision of your life. Exactly. Maddox laughed too. Then his expression softened. Warm. Sincere. Exactly like the night we first really talked after work. But you became so much more than that. You became my closest friend. The person I trust most. The person I miss whenever I'm away from home. The person who makes everywhere feel like home. I couldn't look away from him. Couldn't say a word. My throat had closed over completely. And then, finally, Maddox asked, "Rowan Walker, will you spend the rest of your life annoying me?" I laughed out loud. Through tears. Through all the years that had passed. Through every memory since the very first day we met. I nodded. Very much yes. Maddox closed his eyes for a moment, as if he could finally breathe again. Then he slipped a ring onto my finger, and I slipped the other onto his. Outside the window, snow was still falling, just like the day everything began. But this time it wasn't a beginning. It was a promise for all the future ahead.